The first thing I heard at the Willow Creek Estates Summer Gala was not welcome back. It was a sneer asking who let the problem resident through the gate. They laughed at my plain black pumps while standing inside the clubhouse I secretly owned down to the last shingle. The cruelest part was seeing the HOA president wearing my grandmother's silver hummingbird brooch pinned to her pastel lapel like a badge of conquest. I did not come to fight. I came to watch. This gala was not a celebration. It was a setup. My name is Addison Bishop. The California sun usually baked the lawns of Willow Creek Estates into perfect emerald perfection, the kind the covenants demanded to the exact half-inch. But inside the grand clubhouse, the air was chilled to that fake luxury crispness only money could buy. I stepped through the wide double doors and felt the familiar hum of the building beneath my feet. Most residents would never notice it. The subtle vibration of the HVAC systems I had installed 2 years ago, or the rhythmic clatter of 400 neighbors shuffling across the Italian tile I paid for. To anyone else, this was just the HOA's fancy event space. To me, it was a balance sheet, a maintenance schedule, and the crown jewel of Meridian Gate Properties, the management company I founded that quietly ran the entire subdivision's contracts. Tonight, though, I was not the owner. Tonight, I was just Grant's older sister, the one everyone called the slob who keeps getting fined. I paused at the entrance of the main hall. My heels were practical, bought on clearance 3 years ago. My navy sheath dress had seen better days, clean, fitted, nothing flashy. Around me swirled pastel linens and sharp blazers, the uniform of suburban power. Crystal chandeliers I had approved in a budget meeting dripped light onto the crowd. Towering floral arrangements of white hydrangeas blocked sight lines and probably cost more than my first car payment. I spotted my brother Grant near the center, looking handsome in a rented tux, laughing at something his fiancée Madison was saying. Madison Klein was radiant in champagne satin, holding court with her bridesmaids, her mother Victoria Klein's hand-picked circle. Victoria, the HOA president, stood beside her like a pastel queen. I took a breath and began the long walk toward them. It is a special kind of torture to enter a room where every rule you supposedly broke is staring back at you. But it is an entirely different game when you own the room and nobody knows it. As I neared the group, the chatter dipped. Victoria's eyes flicked my way. She leaned toward her vice president, a woman whose hair was sprayed into architectural perfection, and whispered loud enough for acoustics to carry, "The non-compliant sister is here." The vice president giggled, a brittle sound that spread like a virus through the circle. Polite smirks hid behind wine glasses. Side glances at my shoes. I kept my face neutral, the bland mask I had perfected over a decade of citations. Addison, a voice call from my left. My mother, Darlene Mercer, hurried over in a silver gown, one size too tight. Her eyes dropped straight to my feet. "You wear those shoes?" It was not a question. "They're comfortable." "Mom," I said. Darlene sighed the long-suffering sigh of a woman who believed her daughter's entire existence embarrassed the family. "Just try to blend in. The Kleins are very important. Victoria knows everyone on the board. Don't make Grant look bad." "I'm just here to wish him well," I replied. "Good. Stay in the background." She drifted toward the open bar like a moth to status. I stood alone, a stationary target in the swirl of social climbers. I sipped water from a passing tray and let my eyes do what they did best: audit. I scanned the fire exits. One sign flickered: "Maintenance ticket pending." VIP tables were spaced too tight, violating the flow standards I had written. Servers struggled through the gaps. Habit. Then my gaze shifted to the staff entrance near the kitchen. The double doors swung open and Elliot Crane, the clubhouse manager I had promoted last year, walked out. He scanned the room professionally until his eyes landed on me. Panic flashed. He froze mid-step, mouth opening to say a mess. Bishop or chairwoman? I gave the tiniest head shake. Stop. Do not acknowledge. He swallowed, nodded once, and turned sharply to reprimand a busboy instead. Smart man. If the owner wanted invisibility, she stayed invisible. I let out the breath I had been holding. Safer this way. If they knew, guards would go up. I needed them arrogant. People who feel superior talk too much. They expose flanks. I was here to watch, and the best view is always from the bottom of the HOA ladder. Addison, you made it. Grant bounded over, hugging me so hard my heels lifted. He smelled of nervous cologne and hope. You have to meet them, he said, dragging me toward the head table. Madison was there, sipping something clear. As we approached, my steps faltered. Pinned to the lapel of her dress was the silver hummingbird brooch with the sapphire eye, my grandmother's. Nana Rose had worn it every Sunday. She had promised it to me. You're the one who flies against the wind. Addison, after she died, Mom claimed it was lost in the hospice shuffle. Yet here it gleamed under my own chandeliers on the chest of the woman who had just called me non-compliant. It was not jewelry. It was a conquest. I forced a smile. Madison, you look lovely. Addison, she purred, tilting so the sapphire caught light. So glad you could scrape together the time. Grant talks about you occasionally. The lie tasted like vinegar. Victoria Klein rose beside her husband Harlan, a large man sweating through his two blue tucks. The sister, he boomed, grip limp and moist. Heard you're between opportunities. Tough economy. Something like that, I said. Don't worry. Harlan clapped Grant's shoulder. Once he's officially family, we'll open big doors. Victoria fanned herself with the program, gold chains clinking. She looked me up and down, lingering on my dress. It's so brave of you to come. Honestly, if I were in your position, I'd be too embarrassed. But good for you, resilience and all that. They were performing. Loud wealth, desperate wealth, true power, the kind I wielded in boardrooms, was quiet. Harlan's watch was flashy, cloudy diamonds. Victoria touched her necklace every 5 seconds. Nervous tick. I smiled politely and stepped back. Nice to meet you. I'll let you get back to your guests. As I walked away, Victoria called sweetly, grab a plate. Dear, the shrimp is HOA funded. Enjoy it while you can. I found a shadowed pillar and leaned against cool plaster. My heart hammered, but my mind was ice. I was here for one night, to find out why a sweating man who measured lawns with a ruler was marrying my brother, how Nana's brooch ended up on a stranger, and what they really wanted from a family they thought had nothing left to give. Let them enjoy the appetizers. I would be ready for the main course. The geography of my childhood in Willow Creek had always been simple. Reputation was currency, and I was the volatile penny stock. Grant was the golden child, born smiling, praised for every minor achievement. I was the serious one who asked why the HOA fine for a 3-inch tall flag was community standard. When Darlene said we couldn't afford something, I asked to see the budget. That made me difficult. I learned silence was survival. I observed. I cataloged. I left after high school with one duffel and a Greyhound ticket while Darlene ironed Grant's shirt for college he would drop out of. The next 16 years were grit in motion. I started as a dishwasher, then housekeeper, studying systems while others complained. I bought my first distressed property, fixed it myself at 2 a.m., flipped it triple. Meridian Gate Properties grew into commercial real estate and, crucially, HOA management contracts. I stayed anonymous to my family on purpose. If Darlene knew I was worth millions, she would rewrite history and treat my empire as Grant's safety net. So I played the struggling sister. Secretly, though, I never abandoned them. 5 years ago, Darlene called crying about foreclosure. Next day, the mortgage vanished into a shell company of mine. Grant's ACL surgery? Anonymous donor. Darlene's car repair? Raffle win. Hundreds of thousands funneled through trusts, so they never had to thank me. One wound money could not heal, Nana Rose's hummingbird brooch. She had given it to me in secret. You get the bird because you have wings. Darlene swore it was lost. Tonight it winked at me from Madison's dress like a sapphire taunt. I shifted against the pillar. Emotional, not settled into auditor mode. The room was a kaleidoscope, but I focused on anomalies. First red flag, Victoria Klein. For a woman allegedly celebrating her daughter's engagement, she displayed classic symptoms of someone whose assets were about to be seized. Fingers drummed the tablecloth. Every 30 seconds, she'd check her phone under the table. Scowling, Harlan rose abruptly and marched toward the service corridor. I followed at a distance, pretending to adjust my shoe near the archway. Porcelain tiles carried sound perfectly. I told you the timeline, he hissed into the phone. It happens tonight. I don't care about clearing periods. Once he signs, transfer immediate. Vendor payment? Event overhead? He was talking about moving money fast. I slipped behind ferns before he stormed back. He wiped sweat, downed water. Beside him, Victoria adjusted gold chains like borrowed props. Madison introduced Grant to gray-suited men, investors. The merger of families unlocks capital flow, she said possessively. Harlan has set up wonderful opportunities. Grant nodded, smiled tight. He says I have the right look for the brand. My stomach turned. They were not marrying him for love. They were marrying him for access. Access they thought came from the secret Mercer fortune my anonymous payments had created. They believed Grant was the golden goose. Near the kitchen, I spotted a young man in a black suit holding a thick manila envelope. He handed it to the event planner. From Mrs. Klein. Vendor addendum. Top of the stack for the signing ceremony. Grant initials page 3. You do not sign vendor addendums at a gala. This was the trap, legal paperwork disguised as celebration, making Grant liable for whatever overpriced upgrades Victoria was funneling HOA dues into. If he signed, he would authorize the transfer that covered her embezzlement. I looked at Grant laughing too loud, eyes wide with fear he was hiding. He was a rabbit in a trap. Before I could move closer, Victoria blocked my path. Up close, her makeup was flawless porcelain, but her eyes were flat obsidian. You're hovering, she said, voice low and metallic. I'm just watching my brother. He's busy building a future that doesn't involve whatever this is. She gestured to my dress. He's my family. She stepped closer, smelling of orchids and acetone. Let's be real. Addison, you're the anchor. Darlene told us everything. How negative you are. How you mooch. How jealous of Grant. After tonight, you're done. No wedding. No holidays. Grant needs winners, not clearance rack sisters. She leaned in. Leave now before the speeches. Or you answer to me. I gave her nothing. Small defeated nod. You've given me a lot to think about. She patted my arm patronizingly and floated away, certain she had disposed of the obstacle. The moment the doors closed behind her, the act vanished. I pulled my phone. They were hunting a phantom fortune, but they had miscalculated. They were standing in my clubhouse, wearing my grandmother's brooch, trying to scam my brother while I signed their paychecks through the management contract. I walked deeper into the service corridor, swiped my hidden master key card, and entered the server room. Cold air, blinking racks. This was my domain. I called Elliot Crane. Level 4 audit on the gala event. Pull every invoice, every rider for the Klein family upgrades. Then Nora Beaksley. My counsel, potential fraud targeting family member of my property. Assess exposure if I expose on microphone. Calvin Red, forensic accountant. Trace Victoria Klein and any shell LLCs. Bulletproof chain of evidence. Marcus Vale, security. Eyes on Harlan and the envelope carrier. Jam valet if they run. The net was cast. I smoothed my dress, fixed my hair, and stepped back into the noise. They thought they controlled the rules. They had no idea the person writing the covenants was standing in the shadows, ready to rewrite the entire game. The ballroom air grew thick with lilies and ambition. I had just turned from a chocolate fountain when Victoria's manicured hand clamped my forearm. "We need a quick girl talk," she announced brightly for the waiters. She steered me to a quiet alcove near the service elevators. Dim lighting, hum of vents. She released me and inspected her reflection, adjusting a stray hair. Silence forced her to fill it. "You're hard to predict." "Addison," she said, arms crossed. "Most people would have left by now. I'm here for Grant." She laughed dismissively. "Grant worries about you. It's exhausting. We know about the little checks you send home, the scraps for groceries. Pathetic. Really. Living paycheck to paycheck, trying to play hero." Dark amusement bloomed inside me. She thought my thousands were scraps. She had no clue she was lecturing the woman whose company quietly owned the mortgage on half the block. "I help where I can," I said flatly. "You think you're helping, but you're buying tolerance," she pushed. "They only put up with your negativity because of guilt money. After tonight, you're cut off. Grant enters a new tax bracket, new circle. He doesn't need his past dragging him down." She reached out, picking invisible lint off my shoulder, pure dominance. "Grant is the one with potential. Once married, his assets will be properly managed. Harlan guarantees the family estate is secure. His assets, the family estate." Pieces slammed together. My family had no estate, only the house I secretly saved from foreclosure. But Victoria and Harlan, seeing the lifestyle my anonymous payments created, assumed the money flowed from Grant. They were marrying him for my money. I kept my tone innocent. Why would Harlan need to keep them safe? Victoria blinked, realizing the slip. "Financial security requires expertise. Dear, something you wouldn't understand. Restructure everything. Liquidity guaranteed once papers are signed. Restructure, code for draining accounts." I nodded defeated. She patted my arm again and left, hips swaying, convinced she had won. The second she vanished, I pulled my phone. Grant texted, "Addie," freaking out. "Victoria keeps pushing paperwork for honeymoon bookings. Mom acting weird. Should I run?" I replied, "Do not sign anything until after speeches. Trust me, picture clear. The Kleins were financial predators running a con. They needed Grant as frontman for embezzlement. Overinflated community upgrades paid by special assessment that would bankrupt new residents while funneling cash to their shelves. They assumed the unemployed sister was irrelevant. They assumed wrong. I was the chairman of the board they were trying to rob. I swiped my MasterCard again into the server room. First call to Elliot. Complete vendor file for Klein upgrades. Background on Victoria, tax IDs, business licenses. Next, Nora, if I expose documented fraud on microphone. Exposure, frame as protecting the venue's integrity. Not personal. Link to hotel, sorry. Clubhouse, operations. Calvin, trace LLCs. Active lawsuits, bankruptcy filings. Marcus, target Victoria and envelope carrier. Private hires at exits, note plates. Evidence poured in within minutes. Victoria's shell company HK Legacy Solutions shared the same registered agent as Apex Structural, the contractor she hired for upgrades. Invoices inflated 300%. Email chain, groom pliable. Get signature on addendum tonight. Worst, the family support authorization signed by Darlene, unknowingly assuming liability for overages. My mother had been gaslit into signing her own family's financial death warrant, thinking it was just for extra flowers. I arranged slides on my phone. Employee dossier proving Victoria's husband was middle manager of my subsidiary. Fake invoices. LLC matches. Pliable groom email. Darlene's signature. Masterpiece of forensic proof. I texted Marcus. Jam valet system. Stack cars. No one leaves. Elliot, lock AV controls to my device. When Victoria starts speaking, the system is mine. I return to the hall wearing the defeated sister mask. Rounded shoulders. Head down. Across the room, Victoria laughed with head thrown back. Hand on Grant's chest. Hummingbird brooch sparkling. She looked innocent. She was a predator who had found the perfect prey. A proud family too desperate for status to ask questions. My phone buzzed. Marcus, envelope carrier loading suitcases into running sedan at valet. They're not staying. Getaway car confirmed. Timeline. Speeches at 9. Signature. Transfer. Vanished by morning. Grant would be married to debt. Victoria richer by millions. I looked at Darlene, sitting alone, beaming at Grant with proud tears. She had no idea the paper she signed was a demolition order for everything. Cold, precise, fury settled. This was no longer about shoes or brooches. This was an attack on my blood in my own clubhouse. They had underestimated the problem resident. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the AV booth. Dave, the technician I hired 3 years ago, scrambled up. MS. Bishop, I didn't know. Sit. Dave, we're making changes to the program. Connect my phone. Override audio. When Victoria starts, I take control. The lights dimmed, signaling speeches. Spotlight hit the stage where Victoria Klein stepped to the microphone. Smile wide and predatory. Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone could take seats, we have a very special announcement. Grant and Madison stood at the foot. Madison clutching his arm, white-knuckled. Darlene clapped enthusiastically. I stood in the shadows near the amplifier rack. Victoria pulled out the folded vendor addendum. Tonight is about family, trust, and the future, she boomed. Before champagne, a little tradition in the Klein family, a signing of the covenant. She laid the document on the podium, uncapped a fountain pen. Just a signature right here. Grant. Then we're family. Grant picked up the pen, hand shaking. I checked my phone. 8:59. Elliot nodded from the balcony. My thumb hovered over override. Grant lowered the pen. Tip touched paper. Sign it. Grant. Darlene called. I pressed the button. Romantic music cut with electronic screech. Spotlight died. Collective gasp. Then the massive projection screen roared to life, not monogrammed initials. Not childhood photos, but stark document. Apex Structural Employee Dossier. Victoria's husband. Regional manager at my subsidiary. Bright projector light flooded the stage like deer in headlights. I stepped into the aisle, phone like a remote. Grant, I said, voice carrying in stunned silence. I told you to wait until 9. It's 9. Madison screamed. Cut it. Cut the feed. She lunged for the booth, but it was locked. I swiped. Slide 2. Invoice 402. Structural lighting support. $45,000. Status unverified. Room erupted in murmurs. Swipe 3. Email. Groom is pliable. Get signature tonight. Grant dropped the pen. It clattered. He backed away as if Victoria were radioactive. What is this? He whispered. Victoria's face turned purple. Technical difficulties. Prank. Security. Get this woman out. Her hired goons at the door stepped forward, but the crowd blocked them. I took the stage stairs. Heels clicking. I'm not just the sister, I said into the microphone I took from Victoria's trembling hand. And you are not running an honest HOA, Victoria. You are a thief. Final slide. Family support authorization, signed Darlene Mercer. And you try to make my mother pay for your crime. Room went deathly silent. Victoria tried to speak, but feedback screeched. I continued calmly. For the last 4 hours, I've been treated like an intruder at my own brother's engagement gala. Mocked for my shoes. Told I was jealous. Told to leave so I wouldn't embarrass the family. I didn't come to fight for a seat at the table. I came to stop a robbery wrapped in HOA covenants and signed with a mother's love. Madison charged. Nails like claws. She's crazy. Security. But Marcus Vale stepped from the wings. Former military wall of muscle. Step back. MS. Langley, he said quietly. Who is Langley? Grant asked. That's her real name. I answered. Victoria Langley. Fired 2 years ago from another association for payroll fraud. She's not a president. She's a grifter. Victoria spat. You have no authority here. I looked up at the AV booth. Elliot, if you please. Elliot's voice boomed over PA. Ladies and gentlemen, the clubhouse is under security lockdown initiated by ownership. The woman on stage is Addison Bishop, majority shareholder of Meridian Gate Properties, the firm that owns the land and holds the exclusive management contract for Willow Creek Estates. Silence exploded into roar. She owns the HOA, someone shouted. Darlene's mouth fell open. Addison, you own this? I own the building. Mom, I own the land. And I own the company Victoria claims to answer to. Victoria staggered, gripping the podium. Apex Structural, that's your employer? Correct. Victoria? I acquired it 6 months ago, which means you don't work for a private firm. You work for me. The realization hit like a blow. She had spent the night sneering at me, trying to embezzle through my own clubhouse, while signing her own paychecks through my contracts. Nora Beaksley walked on stage in sharp black suit, slapped papers down. MS. Langley, I am general counsel for Meridian Gate. You are in violation of every clause regarding embezzlement and misuse of funds. We have tracked the invoices, IP addresses, vendor addendum, attempted grand larceny. Officers stepped forward, handcuffs gleaming. Victoria slumped. Madison dropped to her knees, grabbing my hem. Please, we can work this out. We're a family. I pulled free. You don't love him. You love the victim. Tonight you chose the wrong family to victimize, and definitely the wrong venue. The microphone screeched as Victoria tried one last protest. The screen still glowed with the timeline of her cash-out plan. Phase 1, addendum signature. Phase 2, liability to Mercer account. Phase 3, disbursement to Shell. Phase 4, flight to Cayman Islands. No ticket for Grant. You were leaving, Grant whispered. Voice amplified. You were going to leave me with the debt. No, Madison shrieked, dropping the crying act. It's a lie. She photoshopped everything. But the audience was already filming. Flashes popping. Live streams rolling. Social tension snapped into public execution. Officers cuffed Victoria. Marcus's team surrounded Madison. MS. Langley, we're escorting you to a private room. As they pulled her away, she lunged for Grant. Grant, please. I did it for us. He pulled his hand away slowly. I was marrying Madison Klein. She doesn't exist. Neither do you. In the struggle, the hummingbird brooch fell, spinning on the stage floor with a metallic ping. I knelt, picked it up. Sapphire I glinted. It felt right in my hand, the weight of justice. I pinned it to my own lapel. Darlene sat slumped, mascara running, realizing the paper she signed had nearly destroyed her son. I walked down the stairs and stood before her. Mom, I didn't know, she whispered. He said it was just for flowers. You always think you're helping, I said quietly. But you never ask questions. You just want the glory. Because of that vanity, you almost destroyed him. I turned to Grant. The mortgage? Blue Jay Equities, that's mine. I bought your debt 5 years ago. Your surgery? Me. Car repairs? Me. There was no luck. No blessing. There was just me working 18-hour days for 16 years and sending money through shells so you wouldn't swallow your pride. Grant stared, tears falling. But Mom said you were struggling. I let her believe that, so she wouldn't expect checks forever. It stops today. No more secret safety net. No more ghost. Transparency or nothing. Grant stepped forward, humbled. Addie, I treated you like garbage. I let them treat you like garbage. I'm so sorry. I've been blind. You were holding up the sky, and I threw rocks at you. I didn't hug him yet. Trust was harder than hugs. You were drowning. I pulled you out. What you do on dry land is up to you. He nodded. I'll do better. I announced to the silent room. The party is over. Please exit through the main lobby. Valet has been instructed. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Whispers followed. That's the owner. She saved him. I wouldn't want to cross her. I walked out into the cool night air. Humidity felt like cleansing rain. I touched the hummingbird on my chest. We're flying now. Nana, I whispered. I had stopped waiting for permission to be great. The future was undeniably mine. Thank you for listening to this HOA Karen story. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far the drama traveled. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell for more satisfying HOA revenge tales. See you in the next one.